What is good? We're back. We got a redraft mock for your pleasure. We're going one quarterback, no tight end premium, full point PPR. We do a ton of mock drafting to build our own ADP, just to help out kind of how you're feeling about things, pull off different strategies. So if you want to get in on that, go over to the free Discord. There's also a paid Patreon that for $5 a month, you can get extra episodes and all sorts of good stuff. We got rankings, and we'll have redraft rankings there probably by the time you see that. We got some projections. We got all sorts of good stuff, Dynasty and redraft, coming your way. So let's jump into this mock. 12 team, no third round reversal. So I got a team, Chev's got a team, and then we'll kind of take a general look at the board. We'll kind of run through this pretty quick. I got a team here that I started off three running backs. Like Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, and Alvin Kamara. So bunch of olds, right? But for me, I've really been enjoying like a heavier running back start as far as the team that I can build kind of afterwards. And then I kind of target the wide receivers a little more heavy in doesn't necessarily have to be 1, 2, 3. It could be 1, 3, 4. It could be 2, 3, 5, but I've been really feeling the 3 running back start, because I just feel like after we reach that 5th, bleeding sometimes into the 6th maybe round, we really dry up, and then Swift and Pollard are my targets who I like, but I don't want to be relying on them to be like my 2 or even my 1 for, I would rather come in, we're able to start 3 running backs if you want to. In this particular setting, it's 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 2 flexes, right? And then, we got kickers and defenses and all that stuff, but that doesn't really matter for this discussion currently. But how I've really been liking it is I like that kind of mid block in 4, 5, 6 to be more so my wide receivers than running backs. And so I started Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey on the first turn, and then I went with Kamara on the next turn and Terry McLaurin, banking that Terry McLaurin is going to play for Washington this year, right? So those are kind of my first 4 picks in the direction that I had this thing going. Chev, where's your head at with kind of how you've been liking to do your drafts, or do you have a specific kind of build that you've been liking more than others? And then what did you specifically do here?
So here was a little bit different. I'm of a lot of the same mind as you. I think that running back, the value is in running backs because the receiver, I like the receiver depth in rounds, basically rounds 4 through 8,
right?
However you want to slice it. And so with that, I started out with Saquon Barkley and Chase Brown. And then I get to this first kind of pivot point here where I've made peace with the fact that I'm not going to come away in any of my drafts with Brock Bowers or Trey McBride, because I just don't want to pick. I don't want to click that button in the 2nd round. And so I get to the 3rd round and I'm like, well, I could wait and just hope George Kittle makes it back to me, or I could just go ahead and get this over with and not have to think about it anymore. So, me having a 3-5 here, I went ahead and pushed the button on George Kittle just because I didn't think he was going to come back to me at the 4-8. And then I was able to come back and get, I'm buying the dip on Rashee Rice. I still think he comes back. I still think they're going to force feed him targets in that low 8-out role once he's back. I don't think the suspension is going to be 6 to 8 games like people saying it is. If you follow Drew Davenport, FF, he was like the max is probably going to be 6 and get reduced to 4. But that's all conjecture at this point. But I mean, he did nail the Jordan Addison suspension. So and then
that one was a little more cut and dry, I feel like, though.
Well, yeah. I mean,
to get a DUI, he got some better points of references potentially.
Right. Well, I mean, like he pled no contest anyway.
Yeah, I feel like 4 to 6 is in the range of Rashi, and I don't really know what to do with him. To for you to see with him at the 408 feels like it's fallen in line right now ADP wise. We're looking at, let's see, Rashi Rice is the 310, so that's actually later, and I think this is probably should have a little bit more built in. I'm not taking him at the 310.
No.
But 408 could make some sense. It is a long time to kind of wait here. And the next pick was actually Travion Henderson going really high in that one. So
it's getting
that was, I think that might even have been before he played.
This is before the preseason.
Yeah. That's just somebody liking Travion in that. And that's why you could take ADP and you can take, this is my draft plan, and you can throw it out the window because it just takes one guy to really like somebody and kind of throw that off of, I could get Travion in the 5th round, right?
Right.
And I'm good, and that's even reaching. But this guy, and sometimes he went in the 4th.
That's what's going to happen in your leagues, though,
right? And so that you gotta change your plan up a little bit, and that could sting because you've been like, man, I could been consistently getting him at 5'11" or 6'03", and now he goes at 4'09", and so that hurts. But that just means somebody else got pushed down the board as well. So you got to be able to pivot a little bit. So you start off running back, tight end, wide receiver of your first 4: Barkley, Chase Brown, Kittle, and Rashee. Now, the Rashee thing puts you in a little bit of a hold. It also could potentially be gumming up your roster for a little bit, depending on the depth of the bench, of how long, of your roster churning ability on the bottom end, if you had any other injuries or were trying to find, that last spot of somebody who you might be able to play on your roster for one reason or another. But I like the George Kittle idea of, hey, you can kind of skip on Bowers and McBride. I'll still take Bowers and McBride if they're more closer, if they reach that 212, 3-1, 3-2. But most of that's just because of the guys that are kind of around there. I don't mind taking them over those guys. But the idea of the George Kittle click being a little later and being at like, I'd rather have Chase Brown than one of the and then still get George Kittle than have Bowers or McBride, right? So I'm with you on that kind of theory.
Well, in this one in particular, you had JT, Josh Jacobs, Kyron Williams. Are you clicking the button on Brock Bowers over any of those 3?
I'm okay with taking Brock Bowers or or Trey McBride over JSN. Maybe Kyron. If I knew Stafford was going to be healthy, I'd probably still go Kyron there. And then Ladd, toss up for me, but Garrett Wilson for sure. JT, I don't know. I could see, depending on, if I could get JT and Brock Bowers on the turn there, I'd be pretty stoked about it.
That's going runner.
Or really Trey McBride for me, actually. That's also more likely. But I like the idea of not, you're not gumming up your works in the middle of their 2nd round. You're like, hey, I can. And typically George is around later in the 3, but he's definitely starting to creep up. There's more and more people with the same thought process of saying, hey, we can wait another round and get George Kittle, whose volume, because of the lack of pass catchers in San Fran right now, could be as high as it's ever been. And we know how good his TDs and yak ability are, which is always makes him a top 5, 3, 2, 1 points per game tight end.
Yeah.
Right. So what's your plan now that you have Rashee Rice on this roster? Does that make you draft an extra wide receiver, or how do you, what's your thought process here from here on out for the next 3 or 4 picks?
Hey, real quick, if you're not in the free Discord channel, what are you doing? Come mock it up, because the F ain't for fuck it up.
Playing through the suspension. So I followed up that with 3 more wide receivers. And guys that I would feel comfortable with starting as either wide receiver 2s or flexes. So I came through with the big pineapple, Tetaroa McMillan at the 5.5, then Calvin Ridley, then Stephon Diggs. And I feel like that kind of gives me at least some pivot options while I have Rashee Rice sitting on the bench. And then if Rashee Rice assumes basically his last 14 game pace from, week 11 of his rookie year all the way through, the injury, I now have a top 10 wide receiver to add to this fold, and I have wide receiver depth now. So I felt pretty good about clicking that button, knowing that I've got to shore up a little bit extra depth because I'm not going to have Rashee Rice to start the season.
Yeah. No, I like it. I like those receivers a lot. I like Tet McMillan. That's a guy for me. I like Ridley, huge 6'8". You kidding? I would have almost, I'll get to it in a second. We got Diggs at 705 then as kind of your last wide receiver in that bunch, which I like a lot of those button presses. Pearsall wasn't available. Would you have taken Pearsall over Diggs?
100%. Yes.
Okay. So we've got a very similar build. You just have a tight end in there in lieu of an extra running back to start with, right? So, which I would have taken George Kittle if he had been on the 3-12 turn on one of those players, right? I would have probably taken Alvin Kamara and George Kittle.
And that goes back to my point. Hey, there's a good chance he's not coming back, which you just confirmed he wasn't coming back. So,
yeah. So I've got my 4 guys with 1 receiver. I got Derrick Henry, McCaffrey, and Kamara. I got 2 big time pass catchers. If they're healthy and right, they're good. And then Derrick Henry has just been, chugging along on a good offense, on a good team that can score points, and doesn't seem to be slowing down. Look, it's redraft, so if this doesn't work out, it's one season,
right?
But I feel like I've put myself in the best position possible to score ridiculous amounts of points in bunches, Terry McLaurin included. And then on the next pick, I went Devonta Smith. It's not really one of my favorite picks as far as the 5th round receiver for me. Like, I would have rather taken a George Pickens or a Tedero McMillan if they had lasted that long. And then I was looking at Calvin Ridley there, but I almost always take Calvin Ridley kind of in this range. So I went with Devonta Smith there. Would have been reaching a little on Calvin, but I have to if he's going to come back to me. And I think Calvin Ridley is going to be, we've talked about it before, kind of in that Terry McLaurin explosion type player this year for your redraft teams. And then I went J-Mo and just went pure upside, right? I went with some safety with Smitty and went with the upside and Jameson Williams to see what we could kind of do there, right? So, I don't mind those picks. And then on my last pick on the 7-12, so 4-1 was Terry McLaurin, 5-12 was Devonta Smith, 6-1 was Jameson Williams, and then 7-12, 8-1 turn was Deebo Samuel and Travis Etienne. Just another big, I feel like 2 big upside swings kind of on that next turn there, where Deebo hasn't been my favorite guy throughout the dynasty process, but switching over to redraft brain, I think there's a whole lot of upside. I already have Terry on this team. It's not best ball, so it's not, the stack, but they operate very differently. And if Terry doesn't, for some reason, play, we got Deebo. I would like to see Terry play with Deebo. I think that would make Deebo even better.
Well, it functions just like the offense would function in San Francisco with Brandon Ayuk.
Right.
Like, exactly. You got him doing the big boy wide receiver stuff, and you got Deebo around the line of scrimmage, just running through people's face and, generating the most yak in the league. So that's how it works, right? Like, I don't mind that at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm through 8 here, and I've got 4 receivers and 4 running backs. Pretty balanced. I feel really comfortable. Again, really like the gang of wide receivers that you can get, from anywhere from 4 to 7 here, right? Right. I would have loved to see Ricky Pearsall at that turn instead of Deebo Samuel, but again, we know somebody snatched him up quick, and his stock is quickly rising. Tony Pollard didn't come back to me in the late 7 there. Aaron Jones wasn't available, and my guy Evan Ingram, I would have probably taken my swing on tight end on that turn. I probably would have foregone maybe Deebo or ETN, not sure which one, but I would have gone Ingram's like my fallback tight end if I get into that 7th, 8th round, and I'm in a dead zone and I don't love all of the players. I need a tight end still. I take Evan Ingram. So wasn't quite able to get him, got sniped right before that turn. So that was a huge bummer. So we had to recalibrate a little bit. Some other options instead of ETN or Deebo would have been an Egbuka or a Golden, guys we just talked about who are really rising. But what I really didn't want to have to force a running back there. And that's why I like to be a little more comfortable with running back at that point, right? Yeah. That's really, I could have gone Tyrone Tracy. I split it between ETN and Tracy a lot. I like both of those guys as kind of that late 7, early 8, mid 8 running back. If I need one, those are kind of my 2 go-tos at that point. But I don't mind like a Mason. You took a shot on Blue coming in here. So why don't you tell me about the next chunk of your draft here?
It got really weird really quick because I took Diggs thinking that I could come back and then start to shore up my running back depth in that 8th round with a guy like Tony Pollard, with a guy like Aaron Jones. They go immediately after I make the Diggs selection. So it kind of puts me in a pickle. I get stuck a little bit here. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to take an upside swing. And then I know that my last few picks of the draft, I'm just going to have to take more running backs. But it was a pure upside swing. I wasn't thrilled about the pick, which that never feels good. But sometimes you just, hey, my process here is, hey, I want to swing for maximum upside. He's a running back that catches passes in what we think is going to be an elite offense. So went Jaden Blue. Then I went and got my guy Tucker Kraft. I can't leave drafts without Tucker Kraft. I have been very loud and very vocal, and I have something very special to say about Tucker Kraft this weekend. So you might want to tune in during the live stream. Then I went back to the well with receiver with Keon Coleman. Love Keon Coleman. I'm not ready to give up. I think, again, he's just so different than everybody else in the room that I think that there's a role where they can just, and again, follow the camp reports. Hey, man, this guy consistently stacking days, figuring out how to dominate in practice. And he's got the ultimate, hey, screw it. Keon's down there somewhere, quarterback. Josh Allen was number 1 in hero throw percentage last year. So there's a world where this works. I know that, hey, the arrows weren't all green, so he's not good. But at this point in the draft, the upside on what I think Keon Coleman could be was worth it. And then I closed it out with taking my first quarterback after punting early in the draft in Drake May.
Yeah, I like the Kraft pick. I don't mind that if I missed on Ingram. And then I love Keon Coleman's definitely a favorite of mine in those picks there, in that area where you just did that 10-08, or Shaheed went right after him, right? Another upside swing on running back is Tank Bigsby that kind of went around that area. Zach Charbonnet went around that area, right? So those are some fun stabs. And then, May right now is, I think, 12. Our ADP right now has him in the 12th round. Let's see.
1209, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 1209. So you went a round early on the legs right there, which I love. I love that. Hey, you're kind of in a spot here. I want to make sure before I go out and come back, I've solidified. I took a little bit of a hit on my running back, so now I'm going to come in here. I'm going to grab some rushing upside points from Drake May. And grab him maybe a little earlier than kind of what's average and what we've been seeing. So I like that. I like that scoop up by May in the 11th, which is why, neither one of us are huge guys of going the Josh Allen, the Lamar Jackson, the Jaden Daniels, the Jalen Hurts necessarily. Hey, Hurts can be a guy in the 5th round that maybe you go with, but
sure.
But early, not really my flavor there, but I like the May pick. So picking up where I kind of left off as well. Right, the quarterback as well, because I got him in the 9th round there. I came around that turn, coming to get 2 in a row here, and I'm like, man, I don't love the players that I get to pick from here. Right, Keon Coleman is a perennial pick for me, so I could have went a little early, left him alone in this particular iteration of a draft. Cooper Kupp would have been somebody who I would have been interested in here had he made it. Jordan Higgins would have been somebody I've been interested in here had he made it. Running backs aren't really tickling my fancy at this point. Maybe since I have ETN, Bigsby.
I mean, you got a really solid core, so it's like
right. That's real. Again, my big thing. I don't want to have to take the running backs, and hey, I've done plenty of drafts where you got a hero running back, or you got 2 like you did, and then you kind of are in that 8th, 7th. The 7th doesn't work out like you want. You don't get Pollard, and then you're in that 8th in a weird spot. Like, damn, I kind of need one. So Jaden Blue does look kind of sexy, but then you do have to take 3-4 more shots at the Braylon Allens, the Tank Bigsby's, the Zach Charbonnet, you know what I mean? All those kind of guys. So this is, again, just kind of hammering home why I like a little bit of a heavier running back start. So I went Bo Nix. Again, same theory of the May pick. There's legs there. Year 2 advancement, better pieces around him. He's a bit of a default pick for me when I don't love the board. I'll if he's still hanging around at 8 or 9 and I don't love the board, I'll go Nix. And then May's kind of the next one, right? If I'm at 11, 12, if I'm not loving the board, Drake May, right? So I go Pittman here, which isn't a sexy pick, but in the 10th round, he's been a guy who can be very, very good with some volume. And I don't necessarily need him, but potentially, if I had to use him, if Daniel Jones wins the job or if Anthony Richardson takes a step forward, I think either one of those guys can give Pittman some weeks that would make him very usable for me. Went with my first tight end there. Took a stab on Dalton Kincaid. Didn't love the tight ends that were available, but a lot of upside in Kincaid. And then I went back with another Christian Kirk on the double down there of just another guy and with in an offense that could just give me a nice floor play each week potentially when I have some guys up here where I'm like, Javonte Williams is a bit of a ceiling play. We don't know about Terry necessarily. So I tried to get a couple of guys that I thought could see some reasonable volume and have nice floors and be semi-safe week in, week out if I need to turn to them. And that was kind of my thought process with those guys. And then I'll kind of round my draft out here. I went Zach Ertz, and Zach Ertz, man, obviously I took Kincaid because I took the swing, and I typically I might only go one tight end and one quarterback, but Zach Ertz just feels like the pull shoot in case of emergency tight end that I feel fairly confident in that I'll be able to get some really good starts out of.
How would you like it if we paid your 2025 league entry fee? All you have to do is submit proof of a 5-star review from Spotify and or iTunes, click the link, and fill out the entry form. Multiple entries allowed. Commandeer your friend's phone to quadruple your chances to win. Every losing entry rolls over to the next month's contest, all for your pleasure.
And I got 3 Washington players on this team. In the 13th round, basically, we have one more round, and then it's kicker defense 15, 16. I didn't take a kicker in defense in this particular league just to kind of help ADP out a little bit. And then my last pick was Roman Wilson, somebody that was kind of my upside with maybe some volume swing of like, hey, he could be the wide receiver 2 for Pittsburgh. And I might end up cutting him. But, Ertz and Roman Wilson could easily be cuts pretty soon, but Ertz was great last year, and Roman Wilson,
he was tight end 9 in points per game, and nobody saw that coming.
Yeah,
and it's like nobody cares that it happened because he's down here again.
Right, you could go right back to him now. Dallas Goedert and Strange potentially could have been better picks right there. I just felt like I could be potentially catching lightning in a bottle twice with Ertz. I like Goddard and Strange as late round tight ends if I haven't gotten one. I thought at the 10 turn, going back a little bit, the Fields is another quarterback. If you're going late round quarterback, regardless of what do you think the play is, the points per game that Fields is going to put up are probably going to be very good, especially when you're not spending a whole lot on a quarterback. And if you do take Fields, you need to take another one. And a Colt here did a good job grabbing Jordan Love late, right? It's his second to last pick. So why don't you finish out your draft here and we'll wrap this one up.
Well, I took old Bill after that Drake May pick with Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Washington Commanders rookie running back. You follow the camp reports. This is a guy who's firmly on my radar now. You don't agree with me, but I think that there's a point where he's going to take some of that early down work from Brian Robinson. They just need somebody with some juice in the back.
I don't necessarily disagree with you. I like Robinson a little. Like, I don't think Robinson's anything special, but I think Robinson's good enough when healthy to stave off an invader.
See, and that's like, I think this is the Vikings landing on the shore. Like, this is one, like, I love
taking. I'll take Merritt all day long. I don't know if I'm taking him quite in the 12th. I would probably go with Braylon Allen instead, somebody like along those lines. But I get it. Yeah. I get it.
Yeah, I mean that's another really excellent point. The Jets are telling us in their actions kind of how they want this to play out. And we fortunately, we have another preseason game to kind of see this shake out. But it looks like that Braylon Allen's going to be a thing, and kind of in the David Montgomery role, the big back, the Jamal Williams role of yesteryear for the Jets. I don't know how good that offense is going to be, though. So, you take a swing there. That's why he's down here, because we don't have certainty on where he's going to be. And then, I probably should have gone a different direction here. This is probably my least favorite pick of all of them that I made. I probably go Keenan Allen here just to support a little bit more depth, but I went DJ Giddens, and that's, hey, I might be able to catch lightning in a bottle if something happens to JT. I like the profile a lot coming out. Mm-hmm. If Jonathan Taylor misses time, I think this guy steps in, and that's, he's kind of in that mold of, hey, I can handle the early down work. I can grind between the tackles. So that's going to be one of the most run heavy teams. I grabbed a handcuff not my favorite pick, like I said, but we move on. And then Miles Sanders, I think Miles Sanders wins the job. He's been out with a knee bruise for like the last 5 or 6 days. Javonte Williams is handling the work and absolutely doing nothing. So once he's back in the lineup.
Chev hates Javonte Williams, in case you haven't picked up on that.
Yeah, and it goes back to our thing. Hey, let's get 2 of these guys, right? And I can get Miles Sanders so cheap that I can pack my bags with Jaden Blue and Miles Sanders. And if it doesn't work out with Miles Sanders, I can just cut him. So
you're going to be churning potentially 12, 13, 14, or 13 and 14, most likely at some point.
Yeah.
So, no, I like what you did there. JJ McCarthy at 15. So didn't take a kicker defense. Well, you took a defense, but you didn't take a kicker in there. And obviously these are mocks, right?
Right.
So
and I would do this in a real draft anyway. Like I really like the Commanders in week 1. Like they play the Giants week 1, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm all over that. Like their pass rush is going to be, they're going to be all over Russ or whoever they decide the starter is moving forward. Hint, hint. But yeah, I usually run an illegal lineup until like the week of game week, and then I'll get it figured out. Yeah.
No, I like the Miles Blue combo. I don't mind taking it. I mean, like you said, week 1, Krosky Merritt can come out there and get 10, 15 touches and be interesting. Giddens probably needs an injury to get any super meaningful touches, but that's what you're doing there in those later rounds, especially because you went tight end and then you didn't love your running back choices, or you really liked your wide receivers. So you're going to be a little more receiver heavy in your start. And look, there's last year was the rise of the running backs and was really good. Your 3rd and 4th round wide receivers were just okay, and the running backs were really good. I tend to think that we could get back to there again this year, but you could certainly play those 4 wide receivers and be okay for most of the season. So, there's going to be some luck. There's going to be some waiver wire finds that you have to get. Part of luck is health, right? So a lot of things have to play out to be a winner, especially when you're in like a bit of a sharper league, right?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. You got lucky with injuries. I think, making it through the season, putting up a lineup that consistently scores, is in the top 3 in points scored. That's skill. That's 70% skill and injury luck. And then in the playoffs, it flips, and it's just like, man, did my team have a bad week at a terrible time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. So we're going to do plenty more mocks. This is a mock, this is why I do a lot of these, is practice and to fuck it up and to see just kind of how I feel about, like, it's like we talk about it. It's not even necessarily sometimes the names in the box. It's like the build out of the team of like, all right, yeah, I like having 3 running backs. I like getting a 4th one late, then a chunk of wide receivers. And to me, that's been, when I come away, the teams that I've been most satisfied. This isn't my favorite team. I love the start. I don't, the Devonta Smith, Debo. I wish I had a little bit stronger receiver core. Like I'd love to find myself in a little bit better receiving position, but overall, mostly like the team. I like your team build as well, Chev.
Yeah, no, I mean, I really like the way that you close this draft out. I mean, we've been poo-pooing on Kendre Miller just because he hasn't been able to stay healthy, but he looks healthy. He looked like he had a little bit of juice. Mm-hmm. Now that's not an offense with Alvin Kamara. That pick makes perfect sense. And then closing it out with Taj Brooks, that kind of made me upset a little bit because I thought I was going to do that. But yeah, I like those 2 stabs. I mean, Taj Brooks is one of my late round dynasty stashes. I have him on so many benches. But for redraft, Samaje Perine could be the backup, but I don't think that that's going to play out like that. I like what Taj Brooks represents in that offense.
Yeah, no, I like Devin Neal a lot. He's missing some camp right now, and I've been a big Kendre guy. So I thought he looked decent in that first Saints preseason. If he could just stay out of the Dennis Allen doghouse, which he's not there anymore, so that's good. When we keep them hammies tight for Kendre, I think he's got a chance to get a little work for Alvin Kamara there. And if anything should happen to him, I just grabbed his backup there. Obviously, we need a kicker and a defense. But yeah. All right, let's wrap this one up. Chev, take us out of here.
As I always leave you, there's ball watchers and ball knowers. Assign yourselves accordingly. Until next time.
Peace.